Title: The Fence. Chapter 1: The Survey Stakes. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning in May, when Mark Reynolds stepped outside with his coffee and saw the neon orange stakes jutting from his backyard like surgical pins holding together a wound. 6 of them, perfectly spaced, running a straight line from the old oak tree to the corner of his shed, 2 feet inside what had always been his property. Mark nearly dropped his mug. Scene 1: The Confrontation. Gary Hartman was already in the yard, grinning like a man who'd just won something. He wore a polo shirt tucked into khakis, the kind of outfit that screamed suburban warlord. A surveyor's report flapped in his hand. "Morning, neighbor," Gary called, as if they were discussing lawn fertilizer. "Just getting my bearings." Mark's fingers tightened around his coffee. "Your bearings are in my yard." Gary's smile didn't waver. He held out the paper. "County records say different. Property line's actually here." He tapped the nearest stake. "Been wrong all these years, I guess." The document looked official, raised seals, typed coordinates, but the math didn't add up. Mark had walked this land with his own survey when he bought the house. He knew every inch. "You're full of shit," Mark said quietly. Gary's grin sharpened. "Law's the law." Scene 2: The Paper Trail. Inside, Mark spread his own property maps across the kitchen table. Diane traced the lines with a finger. "It's here," she insisted, tapping the 1992 survey. "Same as always." Mark pulled up the county's online registry. Gary's new survey wasn't filed yet, just a draft copy, suspiciously backdated. "He's bluffing," Mark muttered. Diane chewed her lip. "Then why's the stake by the shed?" They both looked out the window. Gary was now hammering a no trespassing sign into Mark's flower bed. Scene 3: The First Shot. Mark called the city. The zoning officer sighed like this was his 10th Gary Hartman call of the week. "Without a filed dispute, it's civil," he droned. "Get your own surveyor." That night, Mark lay awake listening to Gary's new security system, a floodlight that blazed directly into their bedroom window every 12 minutes. At 3:17 a.m., a metallic clang echoed from the yard. Mark peered outside to see Gary dragging something from his truck. A roll of chain-link fence. Chapter 2: The Fence Goes Up. Mark woke to the sound of power tools before sunrise. He stumbled to the window in his boxers, squinting against the glare of Gary's floodlight. The orange stakes were gone. In their place stood a row of gleaming steel posts, their concrete footings still wet. Gary and 2 day laborers were unrolling a chain-link fence, right through the middle of Mark's prized hydrangeas. Diane gasped beside him. "He can't do that." Mark was already pulling on jeans. "Watch him." Scene 1: The Line in the Dirt. The morning air smelled of fresh concrete and gasoline. Mark planted himself in front of the workers. "Stop." Gary wiped sweat from his forehead, grinning. "Morning, Reynolds. Like the upgrade?" "That's my property." "Not according to the county." Gary patted a post. "This baby's exactly on the line." One of the workers shifted uncomfortably. Mark recognized him, Javier from the hardware store. Their eyes met briefly before Javier looked away. Mark pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." Gary laughed. "For what?" "Protecting my own land." Scene 2: The Useless Badge. Officer Ruiz arrived 40 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He compared Gary's survey to Mark's, sighed, and radioed dispatch. "Civil matter," he finally said. "You'll have to take it to court." Mark pointed to the crushed hydrangeas. "What about destruction of property?" Ruiz shrugged. "If it's his land." As the cop car pulled away, Gary started humming asterisk, "Another one bites the dust." Asterisk. Scene 3: The First Legal Salvo. Mark's lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Lisa Cho, studied Gary's survey in her office that afternoon. "Bullshit," she said after 30 seconds. "This coordinate system was discontinued in 2001. She flipped a page. "And this notary stamp? That guy lost his license for fraud 5 years ago." Diane gripped Mark's hand. "So we can stop him." Lisa smiled. We can bury him. Scene 4. The counterattack begins. That night, Mark served Gary with a cease and desist order and filed for an emergency injunction. Gary responded by installing a motion-activated sprinkler system that drenched anyone approaching the fence. At 2 a.m., Mark watched from his bedroom window as Javier returned alone, slipping something under the Reynolds mailbox before disappearing into the dark. Chapter 3. The History of a Bully. Mark sat at his kitchen table, the glow of his laptop illuminating the dark circles under his eyes. The tax records for 1421 Willow Lane, Gary's last address, told a damning story. 2015. A nearly identical property dispute. 2017. A quiet settlement after the elderly neighbor suffered a stress-induced heart attack. 2019. A mysteriously withdrawn police report about trespassing and intimidation. Diane set a fresh cup of coffee in front of him. This isn't his first rodeo. Mark scrolled further. It's worse. Look at this. A local news article from 2 years ago. Controversy surrounds Willow Lane landscaping project. Neighbors allege contractor Gary Hartman deliberately removed protected oak trees under cover of darkness. A photo showed a younger Gary standing in front of a bulldozer, grinning like a man who'd gotten away with something. Scene 1. The electrified fence. By noon, Gary had upgraded his defenses. A new sign appeared on the chain link. Warning: electric fence. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Mark watched from his bedroom window as Gary connected a car battery to the fence wires. Diane grabbed his arm. You're not seriously. I'm not stupid. Mark pulled out his phone and hit record. But the fire department might be interested in unpermitted electrical work near a gas line. Scene 2. The secret in the soil. While Mark documented Gary's latest violation, Diane slipped into the backyard with a shovel. She'd noticed something odd about the disputed strip of land, how Gary always seemed to be guarding it, even when the fence was up. 3 feet down, her shovel hit metal. A rusted steel box. Inside, a set of 1950s blueprints showing the original property lines, and a handwritten deed signed by both families' grandparents, agreeing to share the land. Diane's hands shook as she read the faded ink. To our descendants. This oak tree and the land beneath its branches shall belong to both families, in perpetuity. Gary hadn't just stolen from them, he'd betrayed his own blood. Scene 3. The trap is set. Lisa Cho nearly dropped the deed when they showed her. This changes everything. She outlined their move. 1. File the deed with the county before Gary could destroy it. 2. Press charges for fraud and theft. 3. Sue for emotional distress. But Mark had one addition. We wait until the fence is finished. Diane blinked. Why? A slow smile spread across Mark's face. Because tearing down something he built will hurt more. Scene 4. The poison. The next morning, Rusty didn't come when called. Mark found him by the fence line, whimpering, his paw swollen and bleeding. Buried in the grass, a jagged steel trap, its teeth stained with something oily. The vet's diagnosis came back within the hour. Antifreeze poisoning. Someone wanted this to be slow. Mark didn't speak the entire drive home. When he pulled into the driveway, he didn't go inside, he walked straight to his workshop. Diane saw him loading something into the truck and ran outside. Mark. He kissed her forehead. Take Rusty to your sister's. Don't come back until I call. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The first blow came at dawn. Mark parked his truck across the street and watched as Gary stumbled outside in his bathrobe, squinting at the giant projector screen Mark had erected on his own lawn overnight. The screen played a loop of security footage of Gary tampering with the survey stakes. The poisoned dog trap being set. Every code violation from the illegal fence to the unpermitted electrical work. Neighbors slowed their cars to watch. A kid on a bike started filming with his phone. Gary's face turned purple. Take that down. Mark sipped his coffee. Freedom of speech, Hartman. Scene 1. The basement reveal. While Gary was distracted, Lisa Cho arrived with the city inspector, who took one look at Gary's storage shed and immediately radioed for backup. The structure wasn't just unpermitted. It was a fully operational auto repair shop, complete with stolen tools and a pit for changing oil, directly over the neighborhood's main gas line. Gary sprinted across the yard. "You can't just..." The inspector held up a red tag. "Condemned." Scene 2. The viral deed. Diane had spent all night scanning the old family agreement. By noon, local news stations were running segments titled, "Generational Betrayal: How One Man Stole from His Own Blood." The footage of Gary's grandfather shaking hands with Marks over the shared oak tree played on loop. Gary's wife Brenda was seen loading suitcases into her car by 3 p.m. Scene 3. The Last Stand. Gary came at Mark with a crowbar that night. Mark was ready, not with a weapon, but with his phone live-streaming to 12,000 viewers as Gary screamed, "It's my land. It's always been mine." The police arrived to find Gary kneeling in the mud, sobbing as he clawed at the survey stakes he'd planted. Officer Ruiz sighed and pulled out his cuffs. "Gary Hartman, you're under arrest for criminal trespass, animal cruelty, and, honestly, we'll figure out the rest at the station." Chapter 5. The New Roots. 1 month later. The fence was gone, replaced by a wildflower garden. Rusty learned to walk again on 3 good legs. The oak tree bore a new plaque, "Shared shade since 1952. The couple who bought the Hartman house brought over a pie. Their daughter played with Rusty in the yard where the fence once stood. That night, Mark lay awake listening to a new sound. Silence. Diane elbowed him. "You're smiling." He kissed her palm. "Justice smells like apple pie." The end. Final themes. The high cost of greed. Community as armor. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, especially if they're property lines.